Just in breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, attack in Jerusalem. Israel kills 6 and Israel vows major retaliation. Palestinian gunmen shot and killed 6 people at a Jerusalem bus stop. In response, Israel has placed a hurricane of strikes to pressure Hamas. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to SATV's International Affairs, broadcasting from SATV's Dhaka studio. My name is Rashid Kanchon, your host, and I have a very distinguished panelist, Ali Ahmed, former member Customs, National Board of Revenue, NBR, and he is very good at international affairs, news analysis, and also commentary. Sir, welcome to SATV's studio and today's program. You have heard the killing in Jerusalem, holy place, inside Israel, and Israel offered huge retaliation. What would be your first comment? Then we will go to Washington to talk to Norman for the latest news updates worldwide.
Thank you. Jerusalem, of course, is holy to many, but especially to the three religious groups: the Muslims, the Jews, the Christians.
Yes,
but
sir.
when a holy place is made a political capital and a matter of contest between two countries or more countries, so you cannot maintain its holiness. So therefore, the Hamas or the Palestinians definitely carried out a strike there, and it's not for the first time and should not be like that. And Israel, long before defiling many holy places here and there and everywhere, also retaliated. So this is very unfortunate, but they now have the strongest power, or at least the stronger compared to the Palestinians. Therefore, their score in killing is much more than the Palestinians have been able to do. But still, the Palestinians, providing the proof of heroism, got themselves killed in this unequal warfare, but still are continuing with their retaliation in whichever way they could. We feel very sorry for these unfortunate deaths, but still we also salute their heroism.
Excellent, sir. You said heroism. Mr. Norman from Washington, SATV's geopolitical correspondent. You have heard in the just in breaking news that 6 men has been killed in a bus stop in Jerusalem, the holy place, and a Palestinian shooter has been detected, but no one took the responsibility yet, and Israel says huge retaliation will go to Hamas. What would be your response, and what are the latest news you are following or you want to say in today's show? Mr. Norman from Washington, D.C.
Warm greetings from Washington, D.C. Today in Washington, as we know, the Prime Minister from Israel is scheduled to meet with our president at 11 o'clock today to talk about the peace deal in the Middle East. After that meeting, he's supposed to have a joint press conference at 1 o'clock. I'm pretty sure these news, breaking news, will be a topic of their discussion at 1 p.m. today, Eastern Standard Time. As we wake up this morning, the United States, we are experiencing another weekend called targeted violence. We had a incident Saturday, actually Sunday, in Michigan, where a assailant, assassin, drove a vehicle into a church, a congregation church in the morning, and as we know, 5 people right now has been killed. He basically shot and killed 5 people. He drove a vehicle inside of the church, set the church on fire, and we have additional 8 people we know has been injured, and we look for 7 unknown right now bodies regarding this tragic event. Following that, this weekend, like I mentioned, there was an event in North Carolina where there was against a shooter, a former military guy went in and killed, in a coastal town, he killed 3 people and injured another 8 people. And also in Texas, there was also an incident where in a casino, 7 people were shot, and I believe 2 to 3 people was killed. Following that, there was another incident in New Orleans where a woman was killed and 3 other people injured in a shooting. So it's getting very violent. Targeted violence is spreading. We having real concerns about this. At the same time, the president has implemented military to certain cities. Portland, Oregon, has been designated to have military a presence there. The National Guard has been sent there. We have National Guards in several other cities like Memphis, I believe Memphis, Tennessee, and a couple other cities. So we're all doing this at the same time. We're waiting for the prime minister to show up. Our lawmakers is supposed to meet with the president prior to that to talk about the shutdown, the budget. So they're going to talk about that. The president has ensured that he's not going to do anything with the budget and prepare for a shutdown in the government. So that is where we're at right now.
Yes, Norman, this morning I was talking with few of my journalist friends based in Washington. They said whole world is looking at the White House at the meeting with Trump and Netanyahu. But Hamas has sent a message to Washington. Hamas has sent a message to Netanyahu. Hamas has sent a message to Donald Trump before discussing the ceasefire, because Hamas is assuming this meeting will not bring the ceasefire deal, rather it will hang Hamas. It will allow time to kill more Hamas, more Palestinians, more Gaza people. I can see Shamsul Panto has joined from New York, from United Nations headquarters. Shamsul Panto, would you please let us know what are the latest you have? May I get Shamsul Panto on the line? Yes, Shamsul Panto, would you
Thank
please?
you, Mr. Rashid Kanchon.
Yes, go ahead, sir. Go ahead,
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Rashid Kanchon. I can, and of course, welcoming all my guests in the Satv studio, and of course, here in Washington, D.C., Norman Floyd Barnes. Yes, if you would want to know the latest that is happening everywhere, as Mr. Norman was saying, at least 4 people were killed and 8 injured when a gunman opened fire at a Mormon church in Grand Blanc Township in the U.S. state of Michigan, and a total of 5 deceased persons from this tragic incident had been indicated. And of course, in other news, we have U.S. President Donald Trump saying there's a real chance for greatness in the Middle East, and that it would be something special for the first time ever. These are the things that he had said on a social media platform, Truth Social. Of course, this is regarding the Arab countries, how he had met with them, and following on the Hamas issue. The Arab world wants peace, and Israel wants peace, and Bibi wants peace. These are the words that Donald Trump had said in his Truth Social post for a peace in the region rather just than ending the war in Gaza. And of course, we know that the global Samud flotilla approaches Egypt's northern west coast. They are roughly almost 300 plus nautical miles away from the Gaza boundary. So, and internationally, Spain and Italy have joined in on protecting these 50 or so vessels in the Mediterranean Sea who are attempting to remove the blockade on Gaza that has been there ever since 2007. So these are the latest developments that I have on my desk.
I think you know that Spain has cancelled, postponed all arms deal with Israel and claiming that Israeli Prime Minister is killing innocent people. His mission is very clear. He wants to vacate the full Gaza. He wants to destroy the entire civilization. Do you have any updates? Is there anything discussed in the United Nations General Assembly among the European leaders or NATO leaders to protect Gaza people from so-called butcher Netanyahu?
Thank you so much, Mr. Kanchan. Of course, it's not just worldwide issues regarding Palestine and the Gaza situation. We see the Colombian president, Gustavo Petro, accusing U.S. of violating international law. And he came to the street by stating and asking the U.S. military to go against the orders of Donald Trump. And of course, this had ended up in a visa revoking of the leader of Colombia. So this was just one of the issues, but he came out as a leader who is of support to this Palestinian statehood, and he has done so from the streets of New York, here where I am staying as well. But aside from this, this was a very big update in the last 1 or 2 days. How a leader in the one of the Latin American countries, had stood up to Donald Trump's administration. As we know that there are several ICE movements that are happening. I'm sure Norman Floyd Barnes can give you the update regarding ICE and how they are now going on to Oregon and other cities as well.
I'll come back to you, sir. I have an expert here in the studio, Ali Ahmed, former member, Customs National Board of Revenue. Sir, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has said Israel is working with the United States on a new ceasefire plan. He has given 21-point framework involving an immediate truce, phased withdrawal and hostage release. Hamas has urged Israel to pause strikes to allow for locating two missing hostages. Sir, my question is, every media is looking at White House today, and focus or camera is on two persons, Netanyahu and Donald Trump. As an experienced personality, do you believe outcome will be good for the people of Palestine, and good for the people of Israel?
If you call me experienced, I take it with a grain of salt, because experience comes out of the things you see, you read, you watch and observe. So about this thing, about the US history, only in the 1920s there was a US president who was more or less like the present one during all these years of the history of USA. Now what this gentleman Donald Trump, elected for the second term with a gap, that election has not been questioned, people had a lot of expectation from him. But since his first term, what we have been observing in him, that probably I should say this now on record, that Mr. Donald Trump speaks, I have not divided it into percentages, but maybe 80-90% of his utterances are false, hopes are vacant and meaningless. So what he said, seeing his past performances with regard to Israel and with regard to wars in the third world countries and other things, I don't have much hope. Those said this Monday at 1 p.m. they said something will be announced, but I have doubts. He will say yes, there would be ceasefire, but release all the hostages, good enough, but he will stop there. He will not say about whether this ceasefire is permanent, whether there would be a Palestinian state or not, and what would be the reconstruction plan, as the EU has done it, the Jatisangha, the national UN has done it. So I am not much hopeful about what it does.
You are not hopeful. Yesterday I was watching one program at ABC Network. One commentator says the carbon emission is making the planet hot, but more hot is making by Donald Trump at this stage. I want to get back Shamsul Alam Pantha from United Nations. Israel has intensified airstrikes and ground offensive in Gaza City, targeting hospitals, residential towers and infrastructure. At least 59 people killed in one recent 24-hour period across Gaza. Two hospitals, Ar-Rintisi Children's Hospital and the Eye Hospital, have ceased operations due to damage and nearby fighting. A 6-story health center previously evacuated was also destroyed, hampering medical services. Shamsul Alam Pantho, last more than 1 week you are in United Nations. You see all the world leaders are there. You see all the leaders are talking with the press regarding the Israel-Palestine issues. What do you think? Netanyahu will continue his escalation or attacking or airstrikes or ground strikes to innocent Gaza people? He is unstoppable right now.
Well, he is quite literally so unstoppable. On his way into New York this time around, he did make sure to not fly over the airspace of Spain and Italy, and he chose the Strait of Gibraltar to move out into New York. But when he arrived, and he was the first to open the speech on day 4, and we saw him that the minute he stood at the podium at the United Nations Assembly Hall room, that was the very moment that 55 or so more nations have stood up from their desks and had walked out in a historic protest in regards to the Gaza assault that Israel is currently doing. And of course, Netanyahu held up placards during his speech stating that the groups Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, and all of these groups, what do they have in common? And the common theme that he presented to the leaders who were there, that this was a terror infrastructure in the region. And of course, it was met by leaders walking out in a historic first, and it was a moment of shock where the assembly leader had to say, order in the hall, please take your seats. These were the comments delivered when Benjamin Netanyahu was opening his speech. Of course, afterwards, the internet had took to storm that very day. We had seen protests from Times Square all the way up until the UN General headquarters, the General Assembly. So we understand that this was holding huge significance. But even if you look at the latest news that is coming in from Middle East, Israel is continuously plummeting Gaza ahead of the Trump-Netanyahu meeting. And of course, in the world stage, people understand that it is the US's silence and of course the US's support towards Israel that they are getting this clearance in allowing harming innocent women and region of the Gaza Strip. But of course, some commentators and some fellow journalists over here in New York, they also understand that in the coming days, the UN General Assembly should be moved to Geneva, Switzerland. That is what most people are thinking, or most people are wanting to see, because in the face of worldwide issues, how much the United States is democratic. This is an issue that's a very local issue that I picked out, and I'm definitely following this up. We know that a federal shutdown is coming up, and these are the latest developments I have at my desk.
All right, Shamsul Panto, fair enough regarding the issues. And you know, I'll ask you one question. Would you please check it and learn about it? United States has changed its one ministry's name. It was previously Ministry of State Department. It was Department of Defense. Now it is Department of War. And the Secretary of Department of War is Pete Hegseth, has written a letter to more than 800 generals and commanders to come to Washington or in Virginia to make a meeting. I will have a question to Norman right now. Radio Tehran announces this morning that this meeting between President Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu is not to go for a planning to go for ceasefire. It is a planning to redesign, rethink, revise, refresh and restart a military strategy to cover more Arabian nations, to attack more Arabian nations. Mr. Norman is rightly disconnected. May I ask this question to Shamsul Alam Pantho? Radio Tehran says so.
I was not listening to the question, but I picked out on what you were saying. Of course, in local politics is concerned, we have another breaking story from New York. Eric Adams steps out from the mayoral race here in a shock. And of course, Andrew Cuomo, the previous mayor, had said that, of course, this is due to the lower turnout. But as you were saying about what was happening with Washington, it's still a very early time to understand what's going on. But we understand that a federal shutdown would be quite so important for the government here, as the big beautiful bill is going to be enacted by the end of the month. So it will be a challenging time ahead. I'm trying to analyze what other news we can talk about. But back to you, Mr. Rashid.
All right, Shamsul Alam Pantho. Sir, I want to ask you one question. This is the first time in the American history of 270 years that Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War has called more than 800 generals, commanders from around the world to come back to Virginia to sit with him, to describe him the latest policy. And this is very, very new incidents happened under the Donald Trump administration, and question has been raised among the junior officers as well, why all commanders, all generals are calling back to Washington.
One thing of course is that after the division between the Europeans and America, US, which was not declared, but from the actions taken by the Europeans after being totally frustrated with Donald Trump and his American policy, they had their own policy for peace and reconstruction of Gaza. So it was very clear that all his allies, except some lackeys in the South America, they have said goodbye to Donald Trump. So he must be feeling very bad and very lonely. So he hastily called a meeting of the Muslim heads of states and the Arabs, had a meeting there and drafted a 21-point peace plan. We know some of this, but I am not confident that this is going to go any farther. So in this situation, when Donald Trump feels totally isolated, this has never happened to America, even during the days when it was called the isolationism they adopted, not like this. So they now have to devise means of surviving in this world, because China is coming up at the other end of the world, and it is estimated by American economists that in the next 5-7 years China will overtake USA. So China's military power, economic power and the manpower, army size, Air Force, Navy and all that is something frightening to the Americans, and they are afraid of that. So in the light of this, and the light of the Europeans distancing themselves from Donald Trump, they must be nervous. So that is why they are perhaps calling their generals everywhere, from every base, everywhere, to discuss and to devise some ways as to how they can defend themselves, not attack perhaps, defend.
All right, let me get the comment from Norman from Washington. Norman, you have heard the news that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, previously Secretary of Defense, has called more than 800 generals and commanders from around the world to come to Virginia to sit with him to describe the latest situation. This is one part of news. Another part is, I think you have gone through the article in Wall Street Journal that last 21 days President Donald Trump never uttered one word NATO, rather than he replaced another word European Union in place of NATO. Do you think he has shipped himself from NATO to European Union, because EU is a bigger organization than NATO? Norman, I know it is a complex question, but I am sure according to your knowledge and experience and your journalism career, your negotiation career, your diplomacy career, you can make it easy for us.
Yes, let me try to explain this to you. The Secretary of War has summoned all of his military leaders to meet at Quantico, Virginia on Tuesday. This meeting will come after the meeting with the President and the Israeli Prime Minister, and they discuss about exactly what they want to do. The United States has also given the Arab nation a 21-point plan on reconstruction and how they're going to move about rebuilding the Middle East with the Arab nations. Part of this briefing will be basically on instruction on exactly what is the position of the United States, how we will support, how we will engage, and what we are allowed to do. So he wants to talk to his generals to get them understanding that this is a global approach that we're doing. The Secretary of War is basically giving them instructions on exactly how they're going to deal with issues around the world and how we're going to position our troops. So this is more of a strategic meeting to talk about the future plans of the military globally. So it will be a very, interesting meeting. A lot of information is going to be shared. A lot of stuff is top secret, but the goal is to get the Middle East Arab nations engaged in the peacekeeping situation and the reconstruction of the region. So that's how I view the meeting.
tell us why President Donald Trump doesn't talk about NATO, he talks about European Union. And before you start, I just give you the latest breaking news. UK Foreign Secretary again said NATO will confront Russian planes that violate alliance airspace following alleged incursions near Estonia, Poland and Denmark. He repeated in the same things in 1 week. And tell us something why President Donald Trump doesn't talk about NATO, he talks about EU.
Well, it's very, very plain is that NATO will go, the United States is going to provide the information, the intelligence, and the resources for NATO to engage Europe and to address the issue with Russia. At the same time, he's talking to his generals to talk about our strategic plan, how are we going to do things. It's going to be different. There's not going to be a United States NATO type of response. It's going to be a NATO response, and the United States is going to contribute to that, but we're going to have our own plan. We're talking about a NATO-like situation with the Arab nations.
All right,
The role is
Mr.
going
Norman.
to change.
Your explanation
role is changing.
Yes, Mr. Norman. Allow me to go for a short break. I'll be coming back soon, and I'll have more talk with you, Ali Ahmed sir, and of course Shamsul Alam Pantho. Let us go for a short commercial break.
সারা দেশে লাখো মানুষের কঠোর কর্মতৎপরতা ও নিষ্ঠায় এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন 16 কোটি মানুষের হাতের নাগালে। দীর্ঘ 30 বছর ধরে বিশ্বস্ততা ও দ্রুততার সাথে সেবা দেওয়ায় গ্রাহক সেবায় এখন শীর্ষে। বাংলাদেশে গ্রাহক সেবার সাফল্যের পর এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন বিশ্ব বাণিজ্য কেন্দ্র সিঙ্গাপুরে। আপনার যে কোনো পণ্য সিঙ্গাপুর থেকে বাংলাদেশে বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন। এসএ পরিবহন প্রাইভেট লিমিটেড, লজিস্টিক্স পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, 22 রবার্টস লেন, সিঙ্গাপুর 218302। ফোন 0065 629 24900। বাংলাদেশ থেকে সিঙ্গাপুরে পণ্য বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন।
Fresh news from Kiev, capital of Ukraine. Russia launched one of its most intense aerial attack of the war. 595 drones and 48 missiles hit Kiev and multiple regions. 4 civilians died, including a child. Dozens were wounded, and infrastructure, including residential buildings and a cardiology clinic, was damaged. Ukraine intercepted the majority of the incoming threats, but the scale of the assault underscores the war's escalation. Want to go to Ali Ahmed, sir. People are talking about ceasefire. People are talking about a peaceful world. The United Nations is holding General Assembly to bring the world into peace. But we see war is intensifying everywhere.
Yes. In fact, if you consider the present condition of the world, the power of the military, the financial and other powers, etc., US is in the leading position. Unless the US is involved, true and realistic ceasefire or any stoppage or reconciliation of any meeting cannot be done internationally. When the Europeans found that for some reason or other, reasons are understandable, Donald Trump was not coming forth, so they devised their own means, and they have started arming themselves and also equipping Zelensky in his own country. So they are preparing themselves to continue a war with US if possible, and without him if need be. So that is where it's going. Donald Trump's decision of bringing in ceasefire in a day's time is a hoax. and is a falsehood, and said in utter ignorance of the situation of the world. I am sorry to say this about the president of the most powerful country in the world. So this is the Americans, Europeans now know it is a hoax. Now the EU and NATO, we all know NATO is the defensive alliance, military clashes when the time comes, and European Union is a economic and political association, basically economic association, and America is not in the EU, it is European Union, but NATO, the US is there. So that is why he doesn't speak about NATO, means he has very little interest in NATO, and he rebuked the NATO people many times. Now that the NATO people are re-equipping themselves, preparing themselves, he has started saying, it may be that Zelensky will be able to recover all the lost lands. Previously it said, are you threatening a third world war, etc. We all remember how President Zelensky was thrown out of his office. A president of a sovereign country at war was thrown out of his office. So that is what he did. Now he is reconciled, sort of. I am not much hopeful about his role.
I really appreciate the way you describes the difference between NATO and European Union. Once Helmut Kohl, I think you heard his name, the German chancellor who was one of the initiators to build European Union, he says European will reach up to Turkey. European Union did not reach up to Turkey. Once he said NATO will reach up to so many countries till Asia, but it did not. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump is squeezing the future of NATO and future of European Union. May I get back Shamsul Alam Pantho and also Norman from Washington? I need both of them to ask them a question. Ukrainian President Zelensky and military commanders say recent Russian offensive has failed to meet objective. They assert that Ukraine inflicted heavy losses and disrupted Moscow's spring or summer campaign. Do you think Russia is also losing its capacity to put their drones and missiles, especially ballistic missiles, inside Ukraine, because Ukraine has developed its capacity day by day? First I want to get answer from Norman, then I will definitely come to Shamsul Alam Pantho.
Yes, in my observation is that Ukraine is keeping up. They are not in a situation to overcome, meaning as long as they're getting support, supplies, and equipment from the United States and the other European countries, they can participate in this process. Russia, on the other side, they have to make a decision on how much they want to spend, how much they want to engage in this conflict. They have the ability to basically complete this conflict, to end it in their favor, but economically it may not advantage them. It may disadvantage them. It will be at a cost. So we're basically watching and seeing exactly what level, to what extent this is going to expand, and at the same time that the United States is putting more responsibility onto the partners from the EU to support Ukraine in their conquest.
Mr. Norman, I really appreciate your very spontaneous, thoughtful and also insights in today's show. Every day you do very good. Every day you are giving us much more important informations from Washington DC. I want to ask the same question to Shamsul Alam Pantho, who is now traveling to New York to cover the United Nations General Assembly. Sir, would you please let us know, underdog Ukraine is performing very well from a superpower Russia, because they are now intercepting the drones and even ballistic missiles in Kiev?
Thank you for coming to this issue and definitely asking me about my take on the matter. Of course, over the night, Volodymyr Zelensky had noted that there had been almost about 500 drones and over 40 missiles in an overnight attack, killing at least 4 people. And at this point in time, it was civilian infrastructure facilities, a rubber factory, and apartment buildings were all damaged in the brutal strikes as seen in the Russian attack. So these are the latest updates. We know I was very judgmental, and of course looking at where Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister for Russian Federation, how he had handled and opened his address. It was strong and it was swaying, and not many could oppose to what he was trying to say. He said that Islam is not banned in Israel, or the Jewish.
We have lost, we are apologized, we have lost the connection with Shamsul Alam Pant, and tomorrow I will catch him from Washington. His counterpart will be Alexander Izbrinovsky from Moscow tomorrow, so there will be a nice debate. I want to again come back to Ali Ahmed. Sir, Russia is developing its drone and hybrid missiles, but Ukraine is getting gifts from Western countries to protect from Russia, and Ukraine is doing good. This is the news from Western medias. Do you really believe that Ukraine is fighting back good with Russia?
Really fighting back. About 400-500 drones, 40-50 ballistic missiles coming from Russia, and these are very powerful drones and missiles, and only 4 persons have been killed. Any killing is bad, but think of the enormous expenses Russia undertook, and the death toll is just 4, although some buildings have been destroyed. So it means that they have effectively destroyed and disabled many of these drones and ballistic missiles, because they have also upgraded their stockpiles of different types of defensive and offensive weapons. The European Union, even USA is also selling now, of course. The European Union is collecting money and paying it to the US, and they are selling the weapons to Zelensky. In fact, they are selling it to EU, who are giving it to Ukraine. So that is why they are perfectly well and doing it very well. I am sure there is going to be huge loss, and the people of Ukraine are having a bad day, bad times. Their inflation rate is very, very high, has to be, and their lifestyle is very bad. But still, I have a feeling, I said at the beginning, that these people, Russians, did not understand that NATO and the Western allies will bleed him white. He will be bled and bled and bled, and then there will be a reconciliation. Will most of the lands, at least if not all, return to Zelensky.
Sir, according to 400 years of history, Russia never said, we are sorry, we are surrendered.
No, they don't.
According to that, some Russian businessman exiled in UK says something very important. Russian people will die because there will be shortfall of bread and butter, but there is no one will be able to raise their voice to say, Vladimir Putin, stop the war.
No,
we want to
true.
live, we don't want to die.
But there is a difference. The great point about Napoleon Wars in the 1812, and you know, there was the winter, they called the general winter in Russia, won against Napoleon, and he came back defeated with only a few hundred soldiers or few thousands. And about the Second World War, the defense of Stalingrad, huge Russian soldiers died, so did the German soldiers. Still, Russia defended it. But in both these cases, it was a defensive war. Russia defended its own motherland in both these cases. But now, they are aggrandizing other people's lands. They have occupied very unlawfully another neighboring country, a democratic country, an independent country. So the things are different. Here they cannot win. The Ukrainian people are dying, if need be, in their droves, and they will defend their country. I have a faith that Russia will have to go back home.
Sir, it has time has again come to go for a short commercial break, but I want to give a cue what I'm going to ask after the break. That is, you know, Chinese president is guided by the High Advisory Committee of Communist Party. President Donald Trump is advised by himself. Narendra Modi, Indian Prime Minister, is advised by RSS. There is a big question who advise Vladimir Putin. I will ask this question to you, and I have definitely a correct answer on it. Ladies and gentlemen, apologized for a short commercial break.
সহ দেশের যে কোনো ৮০টি শাখা কেন্দ্রে এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস আপনার সেবা সব সময়।
Welcome, Grand Palace Hotel, Dhaka. A majestic lobby blending timeless elegance with modern design. Experience 5-star comfort in suites and rooms. Sophisticated fine dining restaurant. Crystal clear swimming pool for ultimate relaxation. Modern gym and serene spa for well-being. Perfect venue for corporate events, weddings and parties.
Viewers answering my questions from the delegations or the panelists, I actually enjoy that, but I enjoy more when people in different social medias send me questions to ask to my honorable respected panelist. One question I received yesterday from a Pakistani journalist. He is very famous. He joined us several times. So our question is, President Xi Jinping, he is the only man in the world, we call him Xi. He is guided by the high level advisory committee of the Chinese Communist Party. Indian Prime Minister Modi is advised by the RSS, and President Donald Trump is advised by himself, who advised Vladimir Putin.
Vladimir Putin is a cool master, cool calculator. He does not believe, probably, I am not sure about how they operate, but I believe, seeing the style of his administration in and outside the country, I think he doesn't believe in the wisdom of any person in his country other than himself. So he advises himself. And the problem of advising oneself in extreme dictatorial forms of governance is that you commit mistakes and finally you drown in your own problems, I should say. I wanted to say a harder and stronger word. But so that is what is going to happen to him. And for him, the defeat in this war may not be the end of his regime, because the whole Russian system is controlled by him in such a way that he may survive. But I have a feeling there is going to be a stalemate for some time, and he is going to return the country, return the countryside that he has occupied from Zelensky, and he will go back home. He cannot afford, because the European Union or the NATO, their calculation is simple, that if they allow this country or countryside to be conquered by by Putin, they might be coming for another. You must have heard the news of Moldova's election.
Yes.
So Moldova, they have elected, it's no pleasure for me or nothing, but it's a piece of news. The people there have voted in favor of remaining with the European Union. So that is, you know, it's more than about 3-4 million people, yes, 75 or 8 million. So, and small pocket within the pocket of Russia, they have voted to remain, to join the European Union. So you see, it is a slap on Putin's face, and Putin will not dare to attack it. If he does, he burns his boats doubly. So he must watch, but still he will only take his hand out only when it is burnt, not with respect to
There
himself.
is no one to stop him.
No. He will
Sir,
burn his hands.
as a journalist, I have experienced one thing very beautiful in 2009. After the first 2 terms of Vladimir Putin as president, according to the Russian constitution, he has to hand over the power to someone, and Dmitry Medvedev, one of his in American language called pet, has been elected as the president of Russia, but Vladimir Putin was the prime minister of Dmitry Medvedev government. I had the opportunity to see one program in Moscow that time. Due to a professional reason, I was posted in Moscow. I have seen meeting will start, president has come, he has seat on the dais, but everybody was waiting for the prime minister to come. President himself already arrived, and when prime minister has come, I have seen, including the president, and stood up and said salute to him. And I asked one of my Russian journalist friend, why prime minister is so important? They said Vladimir Putin. He is Vladimir Putin. He is not the prime minister, and he is considered as the god of Russia. That's why his photos you will see in the Orthodox churches. My question is, Russian people has seen jars like this 100 years back.
Very big
Russian people has seen Vladimir Putin, and Vladimir Putin never says I will make Russia great again, but he is actually making Russia great again. My second
trying
question, to. My second question is, what about the future of the Arab nations, sir?
Arab nations. Well, it is very difficult to speak about the future of any country because you really do not know what happens. For this independent Bangladesh, for example, it came out in 71. In even 1968-69, we were very much in the forefront of student discussions and everything, but we couldn't foresee that it will come so quickly. So you often cannot say what is coming in 3, 4, 5 years' time, but it seems that he will have a very tragic end, Putin. And Russia, of course, is not going to be splintered because they are used to a dictatorial way of life, dictatorial way of governance, so they will surrender. But some countries may secede, but most of them did during those days when it was split. So I think he will die someday, but he is very healthy and he is above 70 only, 74, 5. So he has a long time to go. I don't think, and there is no freedom of newspapers, of media, of anything. They do not really know how they are living compared to or vis-a-vis the other countries of the world. So they are happy.
Have you observed the division between the Arabian countries in recent times? Because Saudi Arabia has lost control on other Gulf countries. Saudi Arabia has lost the control on other Arabian countries, as because of Saudi is maintaining relationship with Israel. Saudi is allowing Israel to refuel their jet plane in Saudi Arabia, as you said in previous programs, and they have gone to Qatar to attack. Do you think Americans and Israelis are successfully become able to divide Arabian leaders?
There have been, but then there are some reasons. You know, the Islam has a great division, Shia and Sunni. We all know. But the most important thing is Saudi Arabia is supposed to be the leader of the Shias, size-wise, population-wise, even wealth-wise. And the Iran is the leader of the Shias. You must also see that in Pakistan, the Shia Muslim mosque is attacked by the Sunnis and a lot of people killed, and vice versa. So sometimes they consider them, the Shias or the Sunnis in the other case, more inimical than Jews sometimes. So there is no inner peace and friendship. So that is the problem with among the countries. And so Saudi Arabia took the leadership of the Gulf region and all that because they were afraid of Iran. Iran is a Shia country. So they were under its leadership, and America stepped in with Israel. And they had the Abraham Accords, and they built to a bridge connecting Saudi Arabia. So at that time came this attack or incursion from the Hamas. They may have reasons, they have not told me, but I presume that they thought that they will not be mentioned anywhere. So decided to sacrifice their lives as they are doing now, and that has gone. So now rethinking is there among the Arab countries, and with the US leadership, you see these Arab countries, they have now totally disillusioned. What they have done, their own base in that country, and Israel bombed there. They thought there will be something, but Donald Trump did not say a word. And the other day, you may have or may not have when they were cleaning up sort of by killing the Gazans, he said, well, there would be peace, there would be a ceasefire. Their works are coming to a close, means their killing mission is coming to a close. He didn't say that, but I am sure he really meant that.
Sir, I have been requested by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of People's Republic of Bangladesh to talk about Rohingya issues. They requested me to ask, please ask your distinguished guest and panelist what should be the priority of repatriation of Rohingyas, because Bangladesh is not capable to host 1.52 million Rohingyas for uncertain times. It should be solved, it should be resolved, it should be done.
Well, the Foreign Office people, I do not know from which level it came. I know many of them, but the Foreign Office people should be better informed than us, because they study these things and deal with these things. I do it as basically as an academic subject, history and all those international affairs. So they must be knowing it better. But as I think, yes, there is no alternative to sending them back with honor and respect and everything. And the international community is committed to doing that, but they are not doing anything. So I don't know, now comes a guesswork. There was a talk about this roads for access, and the Arakan army is there. There is a hush-hush in the country that they might be giving this area, at least for a while, to the Americans for doing their job for us. I don't know how far. But they should also consult, the Foreign Ministry should initiate a national consultation about how we can do that. And then they should act like that.
All right, sir, time has come to say goodbye, but before I want to say goodbye, I want to say also there will be no compromise on sovereignty. The people of this country will never excuse the leaders or policymakers of this country for their failure for the national integrity, national dignity, national security, and of course the sovereignty. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all of the people of this country, I want to convey this message to the policymakers and the rulers of this country. Please solve this problem, sit with the counterparts, engage foreign leaders to solve this country, because Bangladesh is not capable to host 1.5 million Rohingyas for uncertain times. Before I end the show, I want to convey a good wish for two persons to whom both of them I really love. One is Les Walesa, former Poland president, who won Nobel Peace Prize for his jobs because he was a simple, ordinary laborer on the street. Later, because of his patriotism and service to the nation, he became the president of Poland and he won the Nobel Prize. On the other side, there is a billionaire businessman, Silvio Berlusconi, who spent billions of dollars to become the prime minister of Italy. Later, he has been criticized for his actions, for his failures of bringing democracy back. Today is both of them's happy birthday. From this show, you want to say happy birthday to you.